I think the key to success is to take this as a life journey. You will need to know yourself, and you will need to know how to career plan and how to get jobs and how to attract investment, how to attract business ventures towards you for your entire life. So the more you spend in understanding yourself, the more you spend in understanding your strengths, your interests, your values, your vision, and have all those things translate into your action plan so that you can be successful in your careers in China, in Asia, and around the world. So I'm going to use PowerPoint. I'm going to take you through these 4 steps in order to keep myself on track and on time. The purpose is to help you define this career vision that will help you to prepare and lead in Asia. A little bit about my background. Nitin already introduced me, but basically working 35 years across 5 continents. I've been presenting and doing workshops. I've worked closely with industry associations, and specifically, for 20 years running career offices for mostly international students, and a lot of them being Chinese, a lot of them being students who leave home, come across the ocean to the US or Canada, do their studies, and then either stay or go back home, and most of them go back home and are very successful in their careers. I'm at a distinct advantage in having also worked with a lot of our alumni. I stay connected with alumni, and I provide a lot of career services to alumni. And I think that gives me a unique perspective because I've also worked on the China side, specifically in Hong Kong, mostly in Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Shanghai, and Beijing, but also in places like Singapore and Tokyo and Seoul and other places in Asia. I always look for inspiration. I like the first one. The Buddha is your work is to discover your world, and then with all your heart, give yourself to it. And the Confucius one, maybe I can highlight those 2. Choose a job you love, and you never have to work a day in your life. So Maslow's hierarchy or needs looks something like this. So I've adapted that psychological model of needs. And even with the COVID-19, Maslow is very much in the news again today, because what we're working on through this pandemic is the basic needs of food and shelter, which would be on the bottom. So if you think of it as a goal that you're trying to achieve, before you execute on your goals, you have to build a solid base. And the solid base is, again, the awareness, the values, the vision, the mission, and the strategy. So that's what my presentation is going to be based on. I used to use this tool called Career Leader quite a bit. And the model that I derived from Career Leader is that 80% of getting this secret sauce right is to understand your strengths. What do you do that is unique to you? And then what are your interests? Everybody spends all their time in that top gear, the skills, getting the credentials, becoming an engineer, getting the education. That's all great stuff. But without understanding what it is you're trying to do, and understand where your strengths lie, and understand the culture that you have to navigate, you're never going to be successful in your career. So to understand strengths and interests, you could take all the tests, but basically I always ask my students to think about what do they like to do? And often that's very different than what are you good at? That's certainly my case in the beginning of my career. I like to do marketing, but I was good in accounting, and everybody pointed me towards accounting. So my first career was as an accountant. I became a CPA. But I think you have to understand which side of the income statement are you on. Are you the type that's going to help push revenues for BASF, or are you going to be the type that helps costs be contained with Baidu? You have to know which side of the income statement are you on. Are you generating money? Are you saving money? In the pandemic side of things, we definitely need people who are going to generate business, because we need to come out of this terrible recession that we're in. That's really becoming a stagnant market. But we also need people who are going to keep care of risk and keep care of expenses, right? So do you like to work with clients or on your own? Do you like to, how about the size of the firm? Huge to all the way to your own firm, your startup. You prefer to work with details of the big picture. Do you want to dive in, or do you want to kind of do more the strategy? And what do you value, and what culture do you prefer? This aggressive culture, this go get it and win at all cost, or this more collaborative culture that we see in places like universities and non-for-profits? So all those things are going to be your most important determinant of your career success. So again, we use, in my past, we've used a lot of this tool called Career Leader. Now, it's getting a little expensive, but some of the schools have bought bulk accounts on Career Leader. I'm not sure if Bentley does, but Career Leader is one of the tools that I have used quite a bit in the past, and it's a very, very strong tool. I'm also a Gallup certified strengths coach, and I've been talking with the leader of this organization, Interstride, to talk about what we might do more on the strength side, because I think it's a very valuable thing. I brought it to the campus in Hong Kong, and every single one of my students was given access to StrengthsFinder, and then we did follow up with our coaches and our consultants. 16PF, I think, is very successful as well. And then I put a couple of free ones on there because I know with students, sometimes you have limited budgets. And I think both Myers-Briggs and 16 Personalities can be helpful. The reason why you want to do these assessments is when you do apply all this knowledge and apply all this effort, I want to make sure you're going to be doing it in the area that you feel you have unique strengths and you have passion to give you that extra gasoline to fuel the engine and to do the work that needs to be done. So StrengthsFinder itself, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on it, but 23 million users. The belief is that you can't be whatever you want. You could only be more of what you naturally are. And it's very useful for career development and focusing your efforts. And the skills fall into 4 buckets, basically: doing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. And the more you know about, again, which of those 4 broad categories you have your strengths in, the better you can communicate, the better you can build teams, the better you know how you fit into your organization. And all this assessment stuff goes into your marketing collateral pieces: your cover letter, your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your 30-second commercial or elevator pitch, your online networking, template for asking questions, right? So all that stuff is going to be help you be successful. Working hard for something that you don't care about is called stress. It's very stressful to find a job. It's very stressful to be in a job that we don't like. So you're going to have to try and find out something that you love so that your passion could come out. And again, that effort will become effortless as much as possible. So the reason why you need a values-driven career is because there's always change. Your industry, your section, your function, your company may not exist. There's a great YouTube video that talks about education and talks about how we are educating students for careers that are not going to exist in 5 years. That may be down to 2 years these days. So change is the constant. And I think you have to understand where the market is going, but you also have to be true to your values. What is it that you want out of your life, right? All that you need is within you. You just have to find out what that thing is. So again, sticking with Simon Sinek, everybody talks about the what I want to do, the outer ring, but really you need to start with the inner ring of the onion and then peel back the layers. If you start with why, what do you want to do? What's the purpose? Why is it that you want to do that thing? Then the how and the what will come naturally. It's just, it makes common sense. You will figure out your path. If you want to be a millionaire by the time you are 30 years old, you will get there. You set that as your target and you understand why that's important to you, and then you figure out the how and the what as you go along. So on to step 3. Am I going okay? Am I going too fast, guys, or is this okay? Because I want to spend time on specific things for China and on lots of time for Q&A and lots of times for Yvonne and Stephen to add their input as well. All good?
You're good. Yes, absolutely.
All right. So in this section, I mentioned in the chat there that students may want to have something to write with or open up their phone or their tablet, their laptop, to maybe take some notes. Because I'm going to have you kind of just close your eyes for 2 seconds and dream 5 years out, and when you have your eyes closed, just think about what's coming to you. So let's just do that for about 5 seconds. And I'm closing my eyes as well. So think about, where are you? Are you in an office? Are you outdoors? Are you with a customer? What are you doing? Who are you doing it with? What would you enjoy if money was not a factor? If you didn't have to pay back your student loans, what would you do? What is your big, hairy, audacious goal? Bag. If you could know that, if you could know that you want to change the world through your ideas, All you need is a phone, a laptop, and some connections to people, and you could change the world. That's what Interstride is trying to do. Keep that goal flexible. Think of the windshield of a car. Don't look back so much, but look forward. You need to be able to see what is coming at you and be able to adjust your long-term career vision, but with a forward motion in mind. The Dalai Lama says in order to carry a positive action, we must develop here a positive vision. So what is that long-term career vision? Write it down, please, if you can. Just if something came to you, please write it down on a sheet or in your phone. You know, my vision is this. Remember, it's a 5-year vision, so it doesn't have to be so well refined. The words should flow from your sense of purpose, your sense of mission, and your heart. Less head, more heart. Dream big, change the world. What would you like to accomplish? Focus on the why, not the how. Professor Cantor from Harvard says a vision is not a picture of what could be, it's more an appeal to our better selves. It's the calling to be more, and you have to define what that more is. So the midterm career vision is less than 5 years. It's around a 2-year window. Technically, it's, you know, if someone's going to do their master's degree, you should have like a midterm career vision in mind when you're going to start that master's or as you're going through your master's. You know, my mission vision is this. Again, do that same exercise. Think a bit more concrete. Again, think about purpose, mission, and heart, but this time, think about what you can do to disrupt some of these old, inefficient ways. The pandemic that we're going through is a horrible time to look for work, but it's an incredible time to take advantage of disruptive technologies and get rid of these old, inefficient ways. What would you like to accomplish? Focus on the how and the why. This time the how comes in. And then again, always consider those personal and personal values and corporate values and culture. So here's a scenario. You know, you run into somebody who could be very influential. You know, in my dream scenario, you're all running into Jack Ma. So scenario one, you meet Jack Ma in the elevator and you do what the career centers have trained you to do, which is basically do your 30-second commercial or your 30-second elevator pitch, okay? So if I was in a classroom, if this was a live interacting session, this is one of the favorite parts the students love because I have them stand up and introduce themselves to the person beside and pretend you're role playing. One of them is yourself, the other person is Jack Ma, and then I get them to reverse and I get them to reflect and talk about how that felt. And then under scenario two, I say, okay, now instead of just introducing yourself to Jack Ma, because that was probably very awkward. You didn't know what to say. You're saying hum and ha, and you're not sure what to talk about. Instead, introduce yourself to that same influential person, providing a sense of your vision, your strengths, and how you can disrupt the status quo. Most of you would agree that Jack Ma does not follow anybody else. He does not follow the West. He does not follow what somebody else should tell him to do. He follows his vision. He's got an incredible ability to see what's coming around the corner. You need to develop that as well. And he knows what he's good at and where he needs help. So he knows how to partner with people on his executive team that round him out. So if I was meeting him, I would talk about my transformational ability to transform companies and individuals through knowledge of themselves and through their leadership teams. That's the way I would sell myself to Jack Ma. So start a new page in your career journal and just record what that 30-second elevator pitch might be looking like if you had incorporated more of your vision, your strengths, and a little bit of your mission into your pitch. So thinking about your school, you know, you're graduating soon, you're halfway through. I'm not sure what the status of your education is, but you're going through school, which is never a bad thing to do. You should always be investing in yourself, investing in education. But what are your goals from your actual program? You know, is it to expand your network? Before we jumped on the seminar, we talked a little bit about networking. For me, it's not always be closing, like some of the movies say. I'm always networking. It's important that even in a lockdown, we are continuing to network. I network electronically because I can't network face to face. So I try to keep up. I try to post on LinkedIn and Twitter and try to see what people are doing and ask them questions and touch base, right? So through your studies, you know, is it to learn skills? Is it to explore new career opportunities or change your career completely? Is it to change location? Is it a move back to China, or perhaps you're going to try Singapore or Hong Kong as economies and countries linked heavily to China? Or just, you know, you're tired of doing something new, right? So again, one of the things you should have on your plan, on your career journal, on this, you know, cheat sheet you're going to have for yourself from today is, you know, what do you want to get from your degree? Because if you don't define your goals, what's going to happen is what happened to me early in my career, other people define my goal for me, and that's not the best way to do it. The academic world is a big puzzle, and I think the more you understand what is that piece of the puzzle that you're trying to solve, what are you trying to get out of it, the more successful you're going to be. So yes, it is about career, but it's also about your network within the school, your network with your careers office and with your professors, you know, your academic part, and then the skill sets that you collect while you're doing your education. So the 1-year career vision, again, this is the shortest time frame that we usually recommend, is thinking about the location, the industry, the function. And I always tell people, what is your go-to list? What is your top 10 companies? Every company in business knows the Pareto rule, knows the 80% of the 20% of the customers that give them 80% of the business, right? That's the Pareto rule. So what are your top industry function and top 10 companies, right? And then once you figure a little bit of that, I recommend you work with coaches through Interstride or coaches through Bentley and through your university and college, and understand and focus, zero in on that career vision, but make it into a tangible, achievable 1-year goal for your career. So leadership is a capacity to translate that vision into reality, according to Warren Barons. So now the final step, the one why you're all here. I want to know how to do this, Joseph. This is all great theory. I can feel the tension and the angst in this virtual room that we have here. Jack Canfield, the What Color Is Your Parachute author, says that if you could turn into your purpose and really align with it, setting goals, that's important, so that your vision is an expression of that unique purpose that you bring, then life flows much more easily. So your career scorecard. Are you going to do internship? Are you going to do exchange? Can you do externship? Can you do an internship at the end of your degree? And if you're going to do an internship or an exchange, how are those tied to your location, your industry, your function, your goals? You want to try things on to see how they fit. You want to be specific, but you also want to know that the area that you're going to go into is the area that you're going to best fit and that you're going to be able to be a rock star in. Because in today's world, you just can't be okay. Being okay does not give you lifetime employment. Being okay does not even keep your job next month. You need to be a rock star. You need to be the best. You have a huge advantage in this market. There are 1.3 billion people that have lost their jobs or will not have a job to go back to. That's incredibly sad. But with that loss comes opportunity, and the opportunity is companies might be looking for younger qualified staff like yourself with the latest education. If you're going back to China, they're probably looking for somebody who has experience, has worked in the West or has gone to school in the West, like in the US, and they could bring those skills back to them in China, because Chinese companies are going to have to learn to be successful even more in the post-pandemic economy than they were in the 10 years before, since they joined the WTO and forward. So you need to think about what are those skills, how can I eliminate the skills gap by joining clubs, going to events, signing up for workshops like what you're doing here. And then that 1-year plan has to come down to a monthly project plan. And that's what a lot of the career centers are trying to work with you on. Develop this kind of proactive monthly plan. You can't just look for a job at the very end. You need to be operational throughout the entire period. So think of this as an athlete, Roger Federer, or LeBron James. Think of any athlete. You're not going to just jump right into playing. You need to train. You need to spend time thinking about getting your mind ready and getting your body ready. How do you get ready? Just don't show up at the gym. You have to prepare, right? You need to be selective about the type of training and the things you're going to do. You need to focus on your specific muscles that you need and the specific skills that you need. You need to understand the rules of the game. You need to get a coach to help you through these ways. And you need to visualize, practice, and achieve excellence. And that's how you get the trophy in the end. You're not going to get that trophy if you do things in the very last minute. Here's the economic reality. Historically, students have found jobs, roughly 70% of them have found it through the hidden job market. I would say in this pandemic time, that's up to at least 80, maybe even 90%. The campus activities is definitely down a lot, and external postings are definitely virtually non-existent. So I think the hidden job market is up to at least 80 or 90%, and then campus and external probably together are making up 10%. So the challenge is even more prevalent for you to understand yourself and then try to get out there in the marketplace. Here's some of the job search realities. So employers like to hire from within. They like to promote within. They like to take a known product within BASF and promote them. They work, Steven's working hard and he's making a name for himself. He's being successful delivering projects. Guess what? He gets promoted. Also, they asked Steven, hey, Steven, who do you know? We need more Stevens in this company. Get us some more Stevens. Go back to Bentley. You're an alum. Go back to Bentley, or think about the people you know in Shanghai and bring them to BASF, because we need them. We need more of you in this type of place, right? So, BASF, all these big companies, they hire from within. They hire through their using proof is like internships and co-ops and summer students, anybody who works there on a temporary casual basis. Then they ask Steven, which is a friend or a colleague referral. That's highly regarded in a firm. China and other countries definitely still use a lot of agencies. As a student, you're not going to be as viable and it's not going to be your go-to method to get a job, because the agencies I'm talking about here are employment agencies, sometimes referred to as headhunters, and most of them deal with experienced hires. You're just not, unless you have a lot of experience coming into your university degree before you went to the US, you're probably not going to use an agency, but that's the order of preference. And then the last thing an employer wants to do is to put an ad in a newspaper or in an online posting service. And then the very last thing they want is an unsolicited resume or CV. Now, you can see the numbers on the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Look at the numbers on the right. That is actually your preference as a student, your preference as a job hunter. You want to just flood the market with your resume. You want to send it out like it's, free paper, free newspaper, free gifts. So hand them out. Respond to every possible ad there is. And at the last thing you want to do is you want to network. The last thing you want to do is understand the company and become more of an insider to that company. But that is actually the way that employers like to hire. It's less risky for them. And in these times, in these pandemic times, there's even more risk that they're going to make the wrong hire, or that the hire they're gonna take on is not qualified, or they're not going to learn on the job quick enough. The Chinese word for crisis is both half danger and half opportunity. You need to keep that in mind. It's a global economic paralysis. Most economists feel that the economy is not just in a recession, but it's depression. It's like in the 1930s. This is the worst job market, the worst economic market we're going to have since the 1930s. But I think there are ways to increase your chances. One theory I have is that the dominant countries will get even stronger. So the USA, China, Japan, and Germany were strong before, and I think they will be strong again. The third world countries are going to struggle. They're struggling through now through the pandemic, and they're going to struggle from the recovery. I think anything that blends technology with hard industry like the biotech, medtech, fintech, education tech industries are going to be really, really hot. Companies coming out of this pandemic are going to look to do things faster and at a lower cost. Mobile apps and messaging are key to doing that. For example, Interstride is available on the phone. It's available, across different platforms. I think that's going to be very important. Digital everything, global supply chain. We need to get stuff to every part of the world as quick as possible. Think of the masks and the gowns and all these things that were in short supply because of this pandemic. Our global supply chain needs to be faster and stronger. 3D printing was kind of hot before, and it's become even hotter because of the pandemic, because they may not want to buy goods from around the world. It takes too long to get there, and they may be worried about virus on the items that you buy. So the ability to send the specs through electronics and to print it locally, I think is going to become even more important. And then frankly, please don't take offense to this, but the reality is that China needs to rebuild itself. China needs to market and brand and be seen as a good corporate citizen even more after this pandemic. So I think there's a huge opportunity for any of you who are into marketing or branding and the marketing of China and the marketing of Chinese products. You constantly need to build your network and your guanxi. You need to increase your relationship, business, and social capital. And one way to do it is LinkedIn. It's not blocked in China, and it's used, but it's definitely not the only way. And when I say LinkedIn, you have to have a proper bio, but you also have to join the groups that you're interested in, that you're going to look for work in, and you have to be active in those groups. You have to post, you have to respond, you have to like, you have to share, you have to be very active in LinkedIn in order to come up on searches. When I was with HKUST, I made the pitch and I got approval to buy job searcher accounts for every single one of my students. A LinkedIn job searcher account, the first 30 days is free, take advantage of that. And then if you feel value in there, then continue and pay the price and keep going. And I think it's very valuable for students. But you also have to let families, friends, and your social networks know that you're in the States, you're going to be moving back. And these are the kind of things I've been doing in the States. I've found a lot of interest in these areas. I developed my skills in this area. So when I go back, I want to look for something like this. And you have to use your alumni networks. We have a couple of alumni we're going to be talking to here as soon as I shut up. And then you have to use tools like WeChat and WhatsApp, because I think they're very useful as well. So you have to apply for the jobs, use the job school board. If you're going to stay in the US, I don't recommend it, but there are job sites like LinkedIn, Career Builder, Indeed, Job.com. I don't have to read all those. In China, things like 51 Jobs, Zhaopin, Glassdoor, China Jobs, eChina Jobs, and Wang Inli is a search firm. They have very, very active jobs on there. There are jobs on there now. You just have to filter out the stuff that's not for you and focus on the stuff that's for you. And then I just put a couple of links there for Hong Kong specific. Steve Jobs says, if you have the courage to follow your heart intuition, they'll somehow know what you truly want to become. All right, Nitin, that is it for me. I'm going to stop my share and let you hand it over to our other guests.
Thank you, Joseph, for that insightful presentation. Next up, we have Yvonne, who was a former student at Bentley. And what I would personally like to hear, Yvonne, is your story after you graduated from Bentley. How were you able to transition to your current role at Baidu? And if you have any suggestions for other students who might be looking for opportunities in China.
Sure. So firstly, I would like to went back a little bit to when I graduated from Bentley. So I was quite related to what Joseph said, as to know about the company and to really know what is inside the company. Is that so when I was doing job hunting, the first thing I came into my mind is that I want to work in an agency, and I also wanted to do the digital marketing. So I searched about almost all the digital agencies in on the East and West Coast. And then I found that Razorfish is opening their has some openings on internships. So I applied as one of their quality assurance analysis intern, and I went to San Francisco to do the internship. So after that internship, they were quite satisfied with my performance, and then they attended the offer to be to have a long-term offer to go to Los Angeles and to lead one of their offshore team in their quality assurance. And after that, since I used up all my OPT times, I think that might be the time that I go back to China. So in the year of 2015, I went back from the US to China, and so when I come back, and then there was not a good time because that was in the I believe it is almost November, and that is not a good time for job openings. So I really do it the hard way to go through the Chinese hiring website like Lago at that time, and that is a place that is mostly used for the IT industry for hiring. And luckily, I got some offer from there, and then I joined a big data company called Grissom and become a digital marketing consultant. And from then on, I was quite focused on extending my network and to talk to people in the industry. And I know one of my supervisor in Baidu now at that time. So after a few times, my friends in Baidu said, hey, there is a job opening there, and I think that is quite good for you. So would you like to try to interview? And I was like, yeah. So and then my friends offered, my friend referred me to that department, and what a coincidence that's my interviewer is the friend that I knew from my previous job. So and then the process going really smooth, and then I was extended the offer at Baidu as a project manager. So, and then I have been working there ever since, from the year 2017. So I think my suggestion for the newly grads would be, because now I think most of the Chinese students, they're doing their graduate degrees in Bentley, and some of their classmates from their college or from their bachelor degrees, they're already been working, so they are very good social network resources that you can go to, and do not hesitate to go to go to them to ask for, I see a job opening in your company and I'm very interested, would you like to refer me? Because the referral system in the big companies is quite formal, and people can get bonus by referring good resources. So people will be very glad to refer good resources and good professionals to their companies, especially their alumni and their friends that they know very well. And also my other suggestion would be to keep posted on the social network like LinkedIn and the Chinese LinkedIn like Maimai and Lago, and to keep your resume posted, to keep it updated, and then you will get phone calls, and you will get to know what people are talking about. And when you want to join industry, you can talk their language, and to let the interviewer knows that you really did your research. So when you go to, for me is that thanks to Bentley's alumni, I got to talk to one of the reservish employee when before I interviewed for the internship, and she was from the New York office. And then after that, I know about the company culture. I know like how the company runs internally, and what's the department of quality assurance do. So at my interview, I can share my thoughts and can share what my strengths is like. That I think that is a big reason why they brought me on board. And that's it. That's what I want to share.
Thank you, Yvonne. And I'm sure we'll have some follow-up questions for you. But
Sure.
Daniel, Stephen, I'll go with Daniel. So yeah,
Okay.
please, if you could share a little bit about your experience and also any tips that you have for any graduating students.
Of course, Nitin. So everyone, I'm Daniel. I was a Bentley alumni, and I graduated around 2009 from the Master of Accounting program. I'm currently a controlling manager of BASF. Previously, I had 10 years experience in different jobs such as auditing, factory costing, as well as FP&A. So hopefully today I can use my experience to help you on job hunting. I remember back in the days in US, I worked for 2 internships. One was internal auditor at Massachusetts Department of Revenue. The other one was Sarbanes-Oxley compliance auditor at the Nuance company. I remember just because 2009, you know, there was the financial crisis. So the job market was pretty bad, and my company eventually froze headcount and could not apply H-1B visa for me. So I came back to China around the beginning of 2010. By that time, the China market also was not very good, and since I was a fresh graduate with not much full-time experience, it was also hard for me to land down opportunities. I remember back in days, I only had 2 offers, and one of them is from PricewaterhouseCoopers, the Big 4 auditing firm. I eventually compared 2 offers, and I choose the PricewaterhouseCoopers auditor offer. The offer was not ideal for me because it was not very good pay. And you know, external auditing work comes with a lot of travels and a lot of long time hour overtime. But I think after 2 years working as my first job in China, actually, looking back, I benefited a lot because it actually helped me to prepare for all the works in the future. Not only I learned a lot of techniques and accounting knowledge, and also it actually helped me to you know, establish the ability to work under pressure and multitasking. So I think the learning curve at my first job actually was pretty good. So this is also my suggestion to all of you, that the first job, it doesn't have to be ideal, but more important is the learning curve you're going to get and the qualities you're going to learn. And also since it's the first job, you have to choose carefully the industry, because some of the industries are booming in China, and some of the industry you want to avoid. This is actually my tips for you. And I think for other tips, I think because it's a very hard time, so you gotta be very patient and just keep trying, don't give up. And while you're hunting the jobs, you can also, you know, going for CPA or CFA those certificates will eventually benefit your career, because later, since you have full-time job and you have gradually more responsibilities, it will be hard for you to spend time on the tests. So it's pretty much it, Nitin.
Thank you, Daniel. So just to stay on that thought, you mentioned some of the industries. There are certain industries that are booming and hot. What are any ideas or suggestions, or just from your point of view, in the industry that you work, what could be some of these industries that students could pay attention to?
Of course, I think industry like pharmaceutical companies, like education, IT, those are all very good industry in China. But in particular, you want to avoid like automobile and the travel industry, maybe at the moment. But actually, in general, travel industry is good in China before the coronavirus outbreak. So maybe in the long term, it will come back after a vaccine is invented. So this is just a few examples.
And my next question is to both Yvonne and Daniel. So in terms of hiring at the moment, what kind of activity do you see in the Chinese market? Do you feel there are internships available for students, or is it completely blocked, shut down because of the pandemic? So how should students approach their internship or job search? Should they be just proactively networking, or are companies still hiring? And starting from your own company, is it BASF hiring or is Baidu hiring?
BASF in particular now is actually, we freeze the global headcount, but I know some companies are hiring, and for the fresh graduates, I think internship will be easier to get at the moment, because cost-wise it makes sense for the company, and through the internship you actually accumulate experience. So that's also, I think, it's the way to go for now.
Yvonne?
Well, for my company, we're just in the process of campus hiring, so it is not being stopped, and we are currently hiring for internships, especially for people already in the mainland China, and for the global hiring, I believe we have it at the a different timeline that I'm not very sure about, but I'm sure that there people can and the students can check our WeChat accounts and to check our hiring website, and they will have the time that we go for the global campus hiring. So currently speaking, the campus hiring have not been affected very much for us and for other internet companies as well. But for the social hiring, I'm afraid that currently the headcount has been frozen.
Interesting.
But now, yeah, because I believe that in the internet industry is one of those industries that's not have been affected that much in the in this coronavirus outbreak. So actually for us it's okay.
Since you know how China was a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of the pandemic, and based on at least the news that we see, you might be already going back to work, or the economy might be opening up again. So do you think things have bounced back rather quickly, and you know, hiring could basically start very soon, or do you think everything is a little bit slow and the economy was really badly affected? So just to get a sense of the pulse of the economy and the market conditions, maybe it'd be helpful to understand for the students as well.
Well, I believe the economy has been worse than last year, as we are now facing some headcount frozen and also maybe some layoffs as well. But for the newly grads, it's not been a very big problem because we always have job openings for the for the school hiring and for the campus job fair, and also for the global hirings. We have that for the campus hiring as well. But I think now the newly grads need to be more prepared than before. Like maybe you cannot get as many offers as before than comparing to your alumni, but that is okay because now we all know that the whole economy is not very good.
Nitin, if I can add, it's Joseph. I totally agree with what Yvonne and Stephen were talking about. I've reached out to my colleagues in Hong Kong that work in the careers offices and in Shanghai, and they basically have echoed what both of them have said, that internship really hasn't slowed down at all, and that even if you're graduating, you probably should consider and apply for internships, because in uncertain times, it's less of a commitment for companies. If the economy turns around, if their sales improve, then they will hire you on full time. There's no doubt about it. You're a proven entity. But the ability to pay relatively lower amount for a 12 to 16 week internship or co-op term is much more appealing to companies. And I also agree that the global rotational programs, the management rotational programs, the leadership program hiring has not really stopped. What's stopped for companies on campus is the one-ups, the specific targeted one-by-one kind of positions. But the program hiring, the 20 new hires for the rotational program are there. Now, the students coming from the US, you're not going to be necessarily the target area for those programs, because they're going to be going to the schools in China and the schools in Hong Kong, and perhaps a few other Asian schools are going to be their target, like NCR and a few other schools. But you have to play your advantage, and your advantage is you took the risk, you crossed the ocean, you invested in great Western education combined with your Eastern education and your experience in Asia. That should be an incredible combination. And I think, again, you can turn what some perceive as a disadvantage into an advantage if you play your cards right. And I think also what Stephen and Yvonne said about networking and applying to what you have initially and then still networking within the company is going to be really key. So because of that, one of the things you may want to do is look for a bigger company, look for a Tencent, look for an Alibaba, look for a Baidu, look for a big multinational like BASF, because they have the money, they have the sales, they have the potential to come out of this recession in a much stronger way than some of the smaller or mid-size or lesser known companies. It's very hard for you to build business without having a prior track record. I would go to a company that is well-funded, well-known, and has already been doing some international business, and they want to do even more, because that's the advantage that all the students going to the US have. You can help Chinese firms expand globally, because now you know a little bit about how business gets done in the US and what consumers buy or don't buy and what are the behaviors. That's a real advantage. When I was visiting companies in China, that's one of the things that keep coming up, and I guess I was at an advantage. I was sitting in Hong Kong, and most of our students are international. We had no problem promoting our international students to Chinese companies, because in some cases, that's exactly what they were looking for.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to just jump in there.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Audrey.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to jump in as well. I was thinking exactly along the same lines in terms of what Joseph was saying regarding the value of studying in the United States and re-entering back into China with all of those assets and the value that you bring. I guess I was wanting to ask further in terms of Joseph and Yvonne and Daniel, what other kinds of ways can students that have studied in the United States emphasize and showcase their difference when they are seeking opportunities, especially in this time? Does anybody have any thoughts about additional technical skills or soft skills or ways that they can differentiate themselves in addition to having studied in the United States?
Yeah, Audrey, I think that's a great question. Let me give my 2 cents. One advantage we found is with students, for example, that studied in the US or even did an exchange or an internship in the US, they had great success working with companies through the American Chamber of Commerce in Hong Kong. It's a friendly environment. Those are either American companies or companies that want to do business in the US, and they're going to be a lot more friendly to people who have a connection to the US, because that's the advantage that you bring. So that's kind of my thought, is to go where they may be fishing. If you want to catch a fish, try to go to the pond where they may be fishing. And I think that's kind of a distinct advantage that they may bring.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what I've seen, Audra, at least from my line of work, I've been working very closely with Education USA and some of the State Department folks in Asia. And all the employees at these government organizations are US educated. So they are Chinese students or Filipino students who were in the US, but they went back to their country and they're now working with the US government or the State Department or some sort of US agencies. So my advice to students who will be graduating will obviously keep an eye on some of these jobs from the US government, but also other multinational American companies that are in China, because they obviously value the Western education. So just keep an eye on all the American companies that are strong, that have a strong presence, whether it's Coca-Cola or Walmart or any of the tech companies as well, because they know the value of the US education.
Yeah, I can add one more thing, Nitin. Just hearing you speak reminds me of one other thing, is to follow the money. So there's bailout money from the US and from other sources, Canada, UK, France, Germany, you name it. They've been spending a lot of bailout money, sometimes on individuals, but also on companies or industries. I would follow that money. There's at least a 4 to 5 month window. So you've got May to about the beginning of October, where there's going to be money to be spent. And some of that money will be spent on bringing in talent that could turn quickly into more revenue or saving money. Again, understand which side of the income statement you're on. Are you adding value through sales and marketing, or are you decreasing costs through accounting and taxation and risk management, supply chain and efficiencies and those kind of things? So follow the money. Once the fall hits in the West, so in the US, say November the 1st, unfortunately, the virus will be back. I don't think there's going to be a solution to the virus for a few years. The virus will be back, the money will be spent, and then companies will be on lockdown again. So I think you've got a 5-month window to just go crazy and apply and network. And if you can't get that job, to take an internship, volunteer, whatever you have to do, get into that organization and then market yourself internally.
So before we leave, I have just one more question, at least for the couple of minutes. So Yvonne and Daniel, in terms of the region, I know you're based in Shanghai, and If students are going back and are flexible in terms of their search in China, what other cities or regions would you suggest they look into other than the two main cities?
I can answer here. I think in China here, pretty much the most opportunities are in the first tier cities like Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen, Guangzhou. But for the past 10 to 5 years, I've seen rapid development in second tier cities like Hangzhou, where Alibaba was based. For example, other places like our BASF group is investing in a city named Zhanjiang. So I think the opportunity hunting is not going to be just limited in those first tier cities. There are also opportunities in smaller size cities in China right now. And actually, about Audra's points, Audra's question before, I also want to add 2 points. One is I think, of course, the study abroad experience actually helps a lot in my life, for my experience. You know, the combination of Western and the Chinese culture and the language actually helped me a lot in my career, because I've been working in foreign companies and where a lot of management just are foreigners. So the understanding of Western culture and the language and the networking definitely help on the communication, you know, and help on even the promotion part. So I think this is one of the advantages. And I think the other point is in US, I think not only the internship, you can also hunt for those volunteer jobs. Because I remember I did one tax preparation volunteer program for 2 months in the winter. Those are experiences that you can also try. And the other thing is at my internship in Yuan's, actually at the end when I was going to go back to China, Yuan's actually offered me a pretty good job in Beijing. Too bad it was not Shanghai, so I couldn't go. But what I mean is for those Chinese students, just try their best at the internship in the US companies, because a lot of them have branches in China. So maybe it will end up in a full-time position back in China. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, and regarding to the regions, I totally agree with Daniel. But comparing to Beijing and Shanghai, I think Shenzhen and Guangzhou, they have a more relaxed lifestyle, and also the opportunities are very good. And for the IT industry, also people may consider Chongqing and Wuhan after the coronavirus, of course, and they are the development center on the west side. So they are both very good cities with quite good balance about work and lifestyle. And also, I totally agree with what Daniel said about the combination of the Chinese education and the Western education we received really helped in our everyday life and in our career. And also, I was talking with some teams from other companies, and some teams like the teams of TikTok from ByteDance, they have the whole team that they require educational background from abroad to develop their markets in the West world. So I think for the internet industry, there are still a lot of opportunities there for the students who came back from US. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for us.
The one thing I would add,
go ahead,
Nitin, is I agree with both Yvonne and Stephen. My experience is Shenzhen, Guangzhou are on fire and will be on fire again in a positive way. I mean, as far as hiring goes. They are in constant need of people, and the people that they need is exactly what Yvonne was referring to, people who understand technology, but also understand consumers and consumer behavior from the West, because a lot of those firms in those places, in the Pearl River Delta, are trying to expand globally. They have already their business in China. That's not where the market is. The market is overseas, into Europe and into the Americas. That's the key. So anybody who can bridge those things is going to be a greater asset for them. The other thing that people were doing is, you know, you can't apply for jobs in China outside of China. Through WeChat and through other apps, they can tell where you're located. And if you really want to, you know, start or restart your job search in China, my advice is get into China. You need to network. You need to, even if you're doing electronic networking, they're still going to ask, where are you? And it just shows commitment that if you're in those places that are growing right now, your odds of getting a job are going to be much higher. We even had an event where in WeChat, you can, you know, shake your phone and the contacts can get added automatically. We had recruiting events just by doing that. Students would show up with their phone, shake, 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 and they're adding contacts on their WeChat, and then they follow up. And, you know, over 80% of the students who did that ended up getting jobs. Now, that was a few years ago. That was in a strong hiring environment, but I think that hiring environment is still there for a lot of the internet technology firms that are have to expand outside of China. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. So we have, if anyone has any questions, we'll maybe hang around for a couple additional minutes, but otherwise, thank you to all our presenters today. Thank you, Yvonne and Daniel, for joining us and sharing your experiences. And thank you, Joseph, for that wonderful presentation. And students, if you have any questions for us or any questions regarding Interstride, feel free to contact us at contact@interstride.com, and we will direct your questions to the speakers as well. But I'll stay here for another couple of minutes to see if you have any questions. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time and have a nice rest of the week. We have one question here: how to decide on an industry or a company when we start a career? So I'll maybe direct this to Joseph.
Yeah, I think, again, you need to think about, especially in this market, where are the jobs? And your panelists, Yvonne and Stephen, gave you lots of insights about industries. I think, you know, within that, you have to understand what functional role you're going to play. Within, you know, a massive company like Baidu, what do you do, or what can you do, and what is your unique selling proposition, USP? And then take that unique selling proposition and try to match it to, even if they have open jobs, that's great, but try to match it to, go onto the career site and look at the different jobs that they do have and post in good times, and try to make yourself a candidate for the job, but also a candidate for the company. Companies have a DNA, companies have a culture. Know what that is, and start to breathe and live more of that culture online. So when we talk about LinkedIn, a few of us talked about LinkedIn, or, you know, Chinese version of LinkedIn. It's not enough to just have a profile. And in your profile, you should not say that you're a student looking for work, because that's not going to get you any attention at all. What you have to do is you have to target the industry and the function that you want to work in, and join those groups. So join the supply chain, marketing, accounting, auditing, tax, whatever groups, and then be an active participant in conversation. Look at what people are saying, and every once in a while, say something, add something. Don't ask. A mentor of mine always said that you give twice before you can ask. So I think that's the right model. And we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and that's the same ratio that we should be using. We should be listening twice and talking only once.
I think that's a great question, and at least from my personal experience, I can say I've made a few mistakes when choosing the industry, mainly because I was looking for jobs in the US, so there was some element of desperation for the H-1B visa or just finding an employer. My personal advice, especially if you are graduating at a time where you have choices, is to stick with your personal values. And to give you an idea, what I mean by that is, for example, I joined an oil and gas company, and I was actually employed by an investment fund that was funding this oil and gas company. But my personal values throughout my life, I've been all about renewable energy. I want solar and wind and all these green energies to succeed. But because of my involvement in this oil and gas company, I was unhappy for the time I was there. I didn't want the company to succeed. I didn't want the company to be profitable, but because of my employment needs, I was at a company. So you can get a really, and the job was really well paid, but somehow, no matter how hard I worked, it didn't align with my value, and the day-to-day was not aligned with my mission. So that's something you should pay attention to, but at the moment, because of the timing, I wouldn't be too focused on the industry, just because, again, it's your first job and you need to get some experience on paper. But once, if you are able to find that role, I think any industry that you choose or wherever you work, it should align with your interest, your values, your passion. And if you love cars, yes, you should still look for jobs in the automobile sector. If you love aviation or travel industry, you should. So see what's close to your heart, what actually drives you, and what will get you excited every morning. Just because everyone's pursuing investment banking doesn't mean you have to apply to Morgan Stanley's and Goldman Sachs. Yes, the careers are lucrative, but your day-to-day is going to be miserable when you have to go to work and work with a person. So it's really up to you. For some people, investment banking could be amazing. They love these big deals and mergers, but for you personally, it could be a huge disappointment once you have that job. So in that way, I think it's really trusting your own instincts and passion and going after companies and industries that actually connect well with your intentions. So those are my thoughts, and comes from my mistakes again. Great. So I think that's it for today. We have taken a few more minutes of your time than expected. But if you have any additional questions, please feel free to email us or contact us, and we look forward to you joining us for some of our other webinars. And Joseph, Yvonne, and Daniel, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and providing your input to the students.